Hello and welcome to this webinar on Reporter. My name is Alistair Parks and I have about 10 years experience as an engineer using LS-DYNA and the Oasys software on various automotive design projects, as well as structural, seismic, geotechnical and offshore engineering projects across the world. In the last couple of years, I focused more on software development and I'm now managing our post-processing software, D3PLOT, THIS and Reporter. So this webinar is all about Reporter. Hopefully by the end, you'll have everything you need to start trying it out yourself. I'll be talking quite a bit about all of the new features we added in version 17, and that's because we made some big changes to Reporter in version 17. But if you are completely new to Reporter and haven't tried the older versions, don't worry, this webinar is for you too. For most of this session, I'll be demonstrating Reporter, but first, a quick introduction. Reporter is a powerful tool for automating the post-processing of your LS-DYNA models. It links with Primer, D3PLOT and THIS to extract images, graphs, and other key results data. You can set up Reporter to run in batch from the command line after each of your LS-DYNA jobs, or you can configure it to run in batch from shell. You can use Reporter templates as a container for your JavaScript and FastTCF scripts to manage all of your automation tasks in one place. And the reports can be exported to PowerPoint, PDF, or HTML for sharing with your team. I'd like to give you 3 more specific examples of when you might use Reporter. First, to quickly capture results to share with your team. You can grab images and results straight into Reporter. Why is this better than taking a few screen grabs? Well, one reason is that the settings of whatever you captured are automatically saved. So if you ever need to revisit the results or update them, you can simply reopen the report and reload the captures to take another look. Second, you can use Reporter to set up some simple automation for your project. You could have a template that provides a health check on last night's analysis run or monitors the changes from your baseline model. And if you set up the report to run overnight, you can quickly share the results each day with your team. And third, you can take advantage of the range of automotive library templates that are included in Reporter. They cover a range of load cases and are updated with the latest protocols. In this webinar, I'm going to show you how to start using Reporter. Then I'll explain some of the extra features, as well as talking a little bit about our automotive library templates, before discussing the next steps you can take with Reporter. To begin, let's talk about this new integrated workflow. And to do that, I'm going to start with the old workflow that existing users would be familiar with. After setting up the models in Primer and running the LS-DYNA solver, I would be looking at the results in D3PLOT and THIS. At this point, I might decide to create a report, either to share the results directly with my team or to set up some automated reporting for future analysis runs. So what do I have to do next? Well, in the old Reporter workflow, I would have to launch Reporter separately. For a new project, I would typically start with a new empty template, and I always find it harder to start anything from a blank sheet of paper. I could add D3PLOT items and THIS items to the template, but each time I have to launch a new session to capture the images and graphs. These sessions aren't linked to my original D3PLOT THIS session, so I have to open the models all over again and get back to where I was. We wanted to improve all of this to make Reporter easier to get started with and quicker to use. So, in the new Reporter workflow for version 17, we start as before, set up the models in Primer, run the LS-DYNA job, and look at the results in D3PLOT and THIS. But now, you can open Reporter directly from D3PLOT and THIS in a linked session. From version 17, when you start Reporter, you can open your recent reports from a list or choose a template from a range of standard layouts. This makes Reporter easier to get started with, and the linked session gives you a more seamless workflow. After choosing a template, you can capture images and graphs directly from D3PLOT and THIS into your report. With version 17, you can start automating your reporting right away. To show you how all of this works in a bit more detail, I'm going to give you a bit of a demo. In this demo, I'll show you how to add Reporter to your LS-DYNA post-processing workflow. Here I have a linked D3PLOT THIS session where I'm looking at some analysis results. Now, obviously, we could be looking at anything here, but for the purposes of this demo, in the top left, I have a pedestrian head impact simulation, currently showing a contour plot of the inner bonnet displacement. On the right, I have a graph plotting the filtered head impact acceleration over time, showing the standardized head injury criterion, or HIC value. And in the bottom left, I also have a completely different model. This one is an offset deformable barrier simulation. So when I want to start reporting, I can now click the Reporter button in the top right of the main toolbar. This opens Reporter as a linked session. So it's now linked to the D3PLOT session that we started with. When I start Reporter 17, I can open my recent files from the list on the left, or I can choose one of the library templates on the right, which include a set of standard layouts to make it easier to get started with Reporter.
We'll be covering more of the features of this panel later in the session.
But for now, I'm going to filter by title page and then pick one of the themes. Here I'm going to pick the executive theme in widescreen, and the title page opens. The next thing I'd probably do is add a page with one of the standard layouts so that I can start adding content from D3PLOT and T. I'm going to pick this layout with 2 placeholder items on the page. Placeholder items are new for Reporter 17, and they're designed to be replaced with content from either D3PLOT or THIS. So if we look back at D3PLOT, we can see that when we launched Reporter, it opened the Reporter panel in D3PLOT, and it's showing the item tree, which lists all of the templates, pages, and items that are currently open in Reporter. If we select one of the items on the item tree, then the corresponding item is selected in Reporter. Likewise, if I select one of the items in Reporter, then it updates the selection in the item tree. We can use this to select items on different pages. So if I select an item on the item tree in page 1, then it will switch the view in Reporter to show page 1. Likewise, if I change page in Reporter, then the selection is updated in the item tree. When I'm ready to start capturing content from D3PLOT and THIS, I can use the Reporter panel to capture whatever is the active window. So if I select window 1 and press the capture button, then the D3PLOT content from window 1 appears as a new D3PLOT item in Reporter. And that's because when no items are currently selected in Reporter, the default action in the item tree is to add a new item on the current page. But I wanted to make use of the standard layouts we have in the Reporter template. So I'm going to delete this item and capture again. But this time I'm going to select the placeholder item from the item tree on page 2 and then press capture. This time the D3PLOT item takes the position of the placeholder in Reporter. As well as capturing content using the item tree and the Reporter panel, we can capture content from the windows and graphs directly. You'll see that when Reporter is linked to D3PLOT and THIS, then each window and graph has some additional buttons. So this time I'm going to select the second placeholder item in Reporter and then go back to the THIS graph. First, I'll click Resize to resize the graph window to match the aspect ratio of the placeholder item in Reporter, and then I'll click the Capture button on the graph to capture the THIS graph into Reporter. If we go to Presentation View, then we can see that the THIS graph has been resized to match the layout, but our D3PLOT item was captured using the aspect ratio of the window in D3PLOT. If we want to make our D3PLOT item match the layout, then I can go back to Design View, open up the D3PLOT item, and look at the image properties. We can see that D3PLOT has given the item a custom aspect ratio matching the dimensions of the window in D3PLOT. If I change this back to Fit Object Box, then when I go back to D3PLOT, I can resize the window to match the reporter item and hit capture again. And now if we go back to presentation mode in reporter, we can confirm that the layout has been updated. Now you might have noticed that the resolution of this image currently isn't very good, and that's because when we're capturing items, D3plot captures the image at the resolution of the window on your screen. But don't worry, when you generate your template, D3plot and T will generate each item on a new page to maximize your image resolution. I can demonstrate that by selecting and generating the item from Reporter. You'll see that D3plot has generated the item in a new page, and so now the image resolution looks much better. So now you've seen how to capture and generate items using the new integrated Reporter workflow. But in this example, the model has been hardwired into the template. And the main benefit of Reporter is to be able to set up one template to run on all of your analysis simulations as your project evolves. So I'm going to quickly run through the example again, but this time we're going to make use of Reporter variables to set up our template to run on a real project. So I'm going to close down Reporter and we're going to start back in our D3plot THIS session at the point when we decided that we wanted to create a report. I'll start Reporter again, and we'll filter by title page, select the executive theme, and add the page with the two placeholder items. Now this time I'm going to go to the variables menu and click edit and change the values of the default directory and default job so that we can change them when we run the template in future. I could browse for a directory here, but I'm just going to paste in the directory of the model we've been using. And because I'm using the Oasys file name convention, then I'm going to select the PTF file. If you're using the LSTC file name convention, that file is usually called D3plot. So once I've set the default directory and default job, I can continue as before. So we'll select the first placeholder item in Reporter, and then in the D3plot window, we'll click Resize and then Capture. And then we'll select the second placeholder item in Reporter, and then for the THIS graph, we'll click Resize. But this time, before we click Capture, I'm going to use another feature of Reporter variables and extract the HIC value from THIS and use it in the caption in my Reporter template. To do this, I'm going to go to the Reporter panel and click Show Variables. If I make sure that the active window is the graph, then I can start adding variables to my THIS item. Now, THIS has already suggested two new variables, which are the minimum and maximum y value over all of the curves in the graph. But actually what we're interested in is the HIC value. So I'm going to add a new variable, change from all curves to the acceleration curve, and then under property, select HIC. I'm now ready to capture the THIS item into Reporter, so I'll click the capture button. Now in Reporter, I can go to the caption and write HIC value, and then right-click to insert the variable that's been added from THIS. So I can see the HIC value here, and I'm going to set it to a floating point number with 1 decimal place for display. If we go to presentation view, we can see that the variable value has come through to Reporter. So now our template's pretty much ready to go. I'm just going to check that our D3plot item isn't using a hardwired model name anymore. Now, because the model that we captured from D3plot matched the default DIR and default job variables that we set, then it's automatically used the variables in the file name. If you find that your model is still hardwired, you can always change it to match the variables so that you can use the template on more than one analysis simulation. I can double check that the same thing has happened in THIS as well, and our template is ready to be saved. I'll call this template head impact, click save, and there we are. We've now used the new Reporter workflow to create a template for our project. The final step to adding Reporter to your workflow is to set up Reporter to run in batch automatically at the end of your LS-DYNA jobs. If you have an existing command line process for LS-DYNA job submission, then you can add an extra command line to run Reporter, like this example here. There's more information on the command line options in the Reporter manual. Alternatively, if you submit your LS-DYNA jobs using Shell, then you can select the option to run Reporter after analysis. Just make sure that the display is pointing to a valid display on your server that Reporter D3PLOT and T can use to generate graphics. Click the Options button to choose the input files, the templates, and the output options for your Reporter process. If you've already run your LS-DYNA jobs, and even if you don't use Shell for job submission, then you can access the same options panel from the Batch button under Reporter. Here, the input file is the keyword file or the results file for your job, it doesn't matter which, and because I set up my pedestrian head impact analysis using Primer's pedestrian markup tool, then I can use the list file it generated to populate the inputs. Now, I don't want to run all of them now, so I'm just going to select a couple, and then under template, I'm going to select the template we saved. The output directories and the file names for our reports are pre-populated, and by default, it's going to output in Reporter, PDF, and PowerPoint format. I can also set various options here to control the process. When I'm ready, I just click Run Reporter, and the batch process begins. For each of the input file names we selected in the list, Shell updates the values of the default dir and default job variables and generates the template. While it's running, I'll just mention a couple of other things about the new Reporter workflow. For now, primer items continue to work in the same way that they did in Reporter 16, and any of your older Reporter templates will continue to work in Reporter 17. Now that the batch process is finished for the two models I selected, I can open up the reports in Reporter, PDF, and PowerPoint and share them with my team. And I hope that the new workflow for version 17 makes it easier for you to use Reporter on your projects.
A big part of accelerating your workflow is automation, and we're seeing more and more of our users turn to Reporter for automating tasks. In this section, I'm going to show you the extra steps we've taken in Reporter to make it easier to use and quicker to get started with.
When you start Reporter 17, you'll see that we've added a new window to help you choose a template. There's a list of your recent files on the left, and you can select from the list and click OK to open, or just double-click to open a file. Now that the template is open, you'll see that we made lots of changes to the main window. But before we take a look at those, I want to talk about the new library features. So I'm going to go back to File, Open Library Template, and we're back in the Startup window. On the right, you can choose one of the library templates that we've added to make it easier to get started with Reporter. The library templates are split up into tabs. In the Standard tab, we have various standard layouts to help you arrange your content. And in the General and Automotive tabs is where you'll find the library templates we provide for the various crash test regulations. To help you navigate the library templates, as well as the tabs, you can filter by category. So on the Automotive tab, you could filter by regulation, impactor, or year. And on the Standard tab, you can select from a number of different themes, as well as filtering by page size and orientation and layout. For this demo, I'm going to choose the Sky theme, filter by title page, and then pick the widescreen PowerPoint layout. Now that we've chosen a template, let's take a look at the rest of the main window. We've modernized the icons of the tools on the left and split them up into various different categories to make them easier to find. If you're struggling to tell one from the other, you can now show labels, and you can also group the tools together. Tool selection then works as before. We've also added some toolbars along the top. There's the View Page Master button that allows you to switch between master and normal view. There's the Generate toolbar that allows you to generate the report, or the current page, or the currently selected items. And there's the Page toolbar. If I click the Add Page button, then I can add a page based on the template's theme. And actually, I'm going to add a whole bunch of pages now, probably one of each layout type. So we can also delete pages or duplicate the current page. And in Reporter, you've always been able to change page by using the scroll wheel on your mouse, but now we've added these page navigation buttons to make it a bit easier to change page. And finally, we have the Oasys toolbar, which allows you to launch D3PLOT and T in the link mode that I demonstrated in the previous webinar. Back in Reporter, you'll see that we've added these item attributes toolbars on the right. Previously, in order to edit an item's attributes, you'd either have to double click on it or right click on it depending on the action. But now we've exposed these attributes in the main window to make them easier to access. So for example, if an item is out of position, then you used to be able to right click to align the items. Now as well, you can use the align buttons to align the items how you want. You can also edit multiple items at a time. So for example, I could edit the width of all of these items at once, or I could edit the captions and, for example, change their color to match the theme color and use the font options to change the font size or the font style. You'll also notice that we have these placeholder items in Reporter 17.
In the previous section, I showed you how to capture items directly from D3PLOT into Reporter.
But placeholder items aren't just limited to D3PLOT and T. You can convert them to any type of item you want. I can double click on the item and convert it into, say, an ellipse. And in fact, you can now convert any item into any other type of item by right clicking on it, going convert into. Here I'm going to convert this back to a text box. So this could be useful if you want to use the standard layouts to mix your content from D3plot and THIS with other text and images. Once you've created some reporter templates of your own, you probably want somewhere sensible to store them. If we go back to File, Open Library Template, then we can add a library to Reporter here. As you'll see in the description here, it says that Reporter will search all of the directories listed here for library templates, pages, and scripts. And it's important that the directory you set up has subdirectories named templates, pages, and scripts in order for Reporter to find those items. So for this example, I'm going to choose the library we've set up at Arup to store our templates. You'll see inside we've got subfolders called templates and pages for storing all of the templates and pages that we've set up. So if I select the Arup library folder, then the next time we start Reporter, all of those templates will appear in the startup window. Now I've just made this setting for me. If you wanted to set this for everyone in your team, then you would need to edit the OA pref file in your admin or installation areas. So if I click OK, Reporter will tell me that any newly added directories will be scanned the next time I open Reporter. So I'm going to close Reporter now. And then if we start Reporter again, then now you'll see that there's a new Arup tab that's appeared. So now I can choose from any of the standard Arup reports, and in fact, there are some that you might even recognize. So how did that Arup tab actually appear? Well, for each template, there are template properties, and this is the information that appears in the startup window. So we've got a title and a description for our template, and then we can tag the template with any number of different categories. So here we've got the theme and the type of the template, and it's this type which determines which tab it appears in. You can also set the thumbnail for the template, either generated automatically from the first page, or you can embed an image from a file. And finally, it's worth mentioning that we've improved Reporter preferences. You can now access most of Reporter preferences from the File Preferences menu, where you can control various editing and grid line settings, set the default file name convention for your models, and change the GUI theme. And you can now save most of the Reporter preferences directly from Reporter, rather than having to edit the OA pref file or use one of the other programs. We hope that all of these new features make it easier for you to use Reporter, customize it to suit the needs of your team, and help start accelerating your workflow. In this next section, I'd like to briefly talk about the Automotive library templates that come with Reporter. Now, we could spend an entire session talking about library templates, but just to help you get started, I'm going to briefly talk about using a library template for the first time. The most time-consuming element of using one of the Automotive library templates is setting up for the first time. So if I select the EuroNCAP FFB template, then the first thing it will do is prompt me to open the keyword file of the job that I want to process. So once I've selected the keyword file, then a message will appear telling me that in order to extract the required data, the template requires some information, and this can be stored as post-RN data, but it can't find that. So it's asking me if I've already saved that data to a CSV file. If we're setting this up for the first time, then I haven't. So I'll click no, and then Primer will start so that I can select the required information. So Primer reads the keyword file, and then a window appears showing all the information I need to enter. Now, previously, you would have to enter all of these inputs one by one, but in Oasys 17, we've added some features to make this quicker. At the top, you select the dummy model you're using. Now, previously, we only used to support Humanetics dummies, but we now support LSTC dummies too, as well as Arup, Cellbond, and Dynamo dummies. For a full list of the dummies we currently support, you can look in the Reporter Library Templates Dummy Info folder in your installation. And if your organization uses dummy models that we don't currently support, please do get in touch with us so that we can add the support. So my model uses LSTC dummies, so I'm going to pick the LSTC Hybrid 3 5th percentile version 2 dummy, and you'll see that when I do that, then it automatically populates all of the inputs with the default dummy IDs, so I don't need to do it myself. I can do the same for the passenger dummies, but now all my dummies are actually pointing at the same set of IDs, so they're all pointing to one dummy in my model. So you can add the offset for the dummy ID, click Import IDs from CSV file with offset, and then an offset is applied to all of the IDs. Now I've just picked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as the offset, so it's now showing that all of these IDs are invalid. So we need to make sure we pick the correct offset for our dummy. To do that, we can collapse this window and then open the include tree. If I go down to the passenger dummy, I can see that it's an include transform. So if I right click on it and go transform edit, then I can see the offset used for the passenger dummy. If I take a copy of that and then go back to the window, then I can enter the correct offset, import again, and all of the IDs are now valid. So this has saved me a lot of time in the setup. The only inputs that I need to specify are the other inputs that don't relate to dummies. So for this test, it's the steering column intrusion springs. I've set these up earlier, so I'm just going to pick them from the database history. And then we'll be ready to save as a CSV file and continue with the template. It now asks me to select a directory containing the analysis results, which for some people is different from the location of the keyword file. And then to select a directory to write images or curves to. Again, for some people, it's convenient to be able to choose a separate directory for output images. Now I've set up the template, Reporter launches TS to complete the generation. So hopefully the default dummy ID feature makes it that little bit easier to get started with Automotive library templates. And as always, if there are any dummy models or crash test regulations you would like to see added to Reporter, please do get in touch.
So in this webinar, we've covered all of the basic features in Reporter that should allow you to start giving it a try. But of course, there are lots more advanced features that we haven't covered. You can use JavaScript in D3PLOT items to enable more complex processing. Reporter script items allow you to customize your templates further, and program items allow you to run external scripts like Python and command line tools. Tables and audit tables allow you to export information to Microsoft Excel, and summary templates allow you to summarize
the results of a whole sweep of your analysis runs. We hope to cover these topics in a future webinar. In the meantime, you can read all about these advanced features in the manual. Do check out our website for more information on upcoming training. And of course, if you do try Reporter and need help, please do contact us. We'd be delighted to help you start using Reporter today.